All right, what I did again, I did the more adventurous things are in the written handouts. And what we're going to do here, here comes Ellen, just made it. All right, what we're doing is taking each category and doing cross profiles within them and then cross profiling the categories. And so looking at the Cat Stevens, first looking at the attitudes, the number 2, the polarity, and number 4, the elements are off balance. Number 3 is reasonably balanced. Now there is, you wonder, because there's so much in the positive signs which indicates a really strong stream of things flowing outward, whether that hasn't caused him to lose grounding. Like you can't carry a lot of weight if you're going to be flying. And so the whole character has that thing of just trying to pour out, and maybe that's why he doesn't have anything in earth. And maybe one of the consequences of that is that he loses touch with tangible facts just because he's so much outgoing. In fact, the whole chart is, you might call it an Icarian chart. You can remember Icarus or Icarius that put on the wax wings and flew up into the air, and sort of like he's floating on his own private jet stream. And he soars mostly into the air, but also toward the fire, and whether he just hasn't gone too far. Perhaps his refusal to look at distinct things makes it very difficult for him to be indrawing, because if there are not external facts, objective things in the earthy world, it's hard to draw in from. If you don't have any focus on that, it's hard to draw in anything. So maybe he doesn't even want to draw anything in. Then moving down to the opportunity cross profiles. Number 5 is very out of balance in that he has more in the south than he has in the north. Number 9 is out of balance in that he has only one planet in succedent houses. Number 7 is modestly out of balance in that there's a slight surplus in the 4th quadrant and little in the 2nd quadrant. And so in general, probably the whole category of opportunity profiles is more balanced than imbalanced. And you begin to wonder whether he needs the macrocosmic world or the big world, those kinds of opportunities, to stabilize him. Maybe in relating to the objectivity of the wider world, he has stability that would normally be provided through having ongoing responsibilities, as one would expect from the succedent houses. So there's something like that may be going on, or it could be a chicken and an egg kind of thing, that maybe because he's given up on responsibility opportunities that he sort of sacrificed them or abandoned them altogether to be more and more out into the world. Now, it's expectable, since he's a performance artist, you'd expect something like number 5, which indicates a lot out in the world. But it is strange that there is so little in the 2nd quadrant, looking at profile number 7, because the 2nd quadrant is the personalizing quadrant, especially the 5th house, which is personal expression. If you look at profile 10, in the triplicities, he does have quite a few inexpressive houses, 4 planets anyway, but that's not really personal. So maybe it's just expression, but not personal expression. Maybe he has shirked as far as the microcosmic life is concerned and has little in the northern hemisphere. And because of he's shirked on himself, he can't have a personal style. Or perhaps the rap that is laid on him is that he kept changing styles because he was always just seeking popularity. And maybe he sold out to popularity and really didn't develop something that was his and his all alone. Maybe he didn't have the integrity of a personal style. It's a pretty extreme claim, but that's some of what the world levels at him. Looking at the action cross profiles, none of them are really extremely imbalanced. So we're grasping here at faint things and not really strong things. If you look at number 13, there are more benefics than malefics, and there are more medium and low intensity aspects in number 12, but everything else is pretty normal. At first, you might think that the excess benefics probably only point to having all kinds of talents. Because in order to change course 3 times in life, you have to have a bit of challenge to be able to do that. But that neglects the fact that even though we may not like all of his charities and all of his benefic things that he does, we might not like his flavor of Islam, for example, but the fact is that he is a charitable man. And charity is a big part of Islam. And so his choices, though not our own, do point at something benefic. If you look at the mild intensity aspects, that does describe his work. His work is much more gentle than it is emphatic. It's not something that is rammed at you. It's something that's more more light. And some people would say that it's low in content. I don't know if I can say that. It's catchy, as much of it as I've heard. Can't say about content. So, from all of this all together, you have to conclude that he's a mild force for the good. And as far as we've looked at the character, that looks pretty good. Now, most of the 3 things that we've looked at, the attitude has some imbalance, but the other 2 categories we've looked at are pretty much balanced. But when we look at the big picture profiles, numbers 16 and 17, the focus profiles, everything there seems like it's out of kilter. In some ways, he's Cancerian, the only 2 negative planets he has. We're talking here about the agreement. The sun is negative, and the ascendant and the moon are positive. So it's sort of like he's shelled up inside of himself, and from the focus profile, he's shy about letting anything into his real nature or out from his real nature. And this indicates, or this is carried further in the stage test, because that's an opposition. It shows a lot of indecision, a lot of instability, and it's the second phase. Things are going into the second half of the moon cycle, and so that means things are coming apart. The feeling that I get when I look at it, at the profile, especially the agreement profile, I get the idea of somebody who has self-dissociated. And that self-dissociation is the cause, or is more likely to be causal to imbalance and instability. Because if you say the other, imbalance doesn't necessarily make for dissociation. So that doesn't seem very likely. It's possible, but it isn't really likely. So you can say that the having the positive ascendant and the positive moon, somehow he's trying to draw himself out. And that trying to draw himself out with resistance is associated with loss of equipoise. And that seems likely. So let's try to put it all together and cross-profile the categories. Half of the categories are more balanced than imbalance. If you count each of the individual profiles, you find that most of the individual profiles are balanced. So the general personality is not that of an extremist. But the big picture, the way he looks at the general character, is out of focus. And it appears to be attitudes that take him out of focus, while opportunities have the effect of stabilizing him. And his modes of doing things from the action profiles are stabilizing. The extroversive attitudes that counter his inmost desire seem to be the most disruptive. And they seem to be the things that get him off center or make him eccentric. And so you wonder, with all those extrovertive attitudes and the desire for being out in the world, you wonder whether his whole view of popularity and his whole view of society and acceptance in society, you wonder whether that isn't all abstract. And even his notion of fame is abstract. This is a frequent thing to have happen. It happened to Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon sought fame, and when he got it, he didn't know what to do with it because his personality wasn't, he got bored with Hail to the Chief after a while. He was he had a character that was reclusive. So maybe a lot of his attitudes and his more in the world opportunities are something artificial and have little to do with reality. That urge to externalize and to be popular can go against one's real nature. And that's what seems to have happened here. And that his having to pull away was necessity because he was doing things that weren't really him. So you can say that maybe he was a phony when he first was a bubblegum rocker and then became a folk singer and then became an ardent Muslim, that maybe he was doing something that was phony, but at least he caught himself and he didn't continue to do it for the rest of his life. He's a complete recluse, and I think he just goes to mosques. He's a devout Muslim. Not a Sufi, no. He's pretty much a straight-out Muslim. Well, he does do children's music now. Oh, that's interesting. I should see if I can find some of that.
As lightweight as this guy was, I saw him as consistent throughout his whole life. I mean, it wasn't him that changed; it was the audience that changed.
No, he changed. Oh yes, from when he was a folk singer to when he had been a pop singer, he was a very different image that he put out. Yeah. Yes, yes, it is inmost self. He was extroverted, but you just wonder whether that isn't sometimes to make up for a character that's overly shy. I have seen that kind of thing before, but it's pretty hard to defeat the Cancer introversion. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And especially with the Neptune there, it amplifies all of the physical sensitivity. I should mention, because of Thanksgiving, it'll be 3 weeks before we meet next time. All right. I've done my duty, so not everybody turns up at the wrong time. Looking at Simone de Beauvoir, I have several books of hers, some from her private memoirs and some of her writings. I should be able to do better with her as we go along and understand exactly how the character and the chart work together. Looking at the attitude cross profiles, only number 2, the polarity is imbalanced, and it is in the favor of the negative signs. So she's just the opposite. She's more of an interner. So if you look at number 3, the cardinal and common signs together are pretty strong, whereas the fixed signs are not. So it shows that even though she's introversive, she's got attitudes that make for change. And you wonder, since she is a philosopher and works with her own consciousness as her laboratory, you wonder whether that combination means that she looks for different ways or changes ways that she can internalize, and that she can watch her whole process of indrawing of information. Without that speculation, it's safe to say that she absorbs herself on things outside. And she does so to have something to draw in to find herself inwardly. It's very likely that she does a lot of changing in this, and so you can just conclude that she is a philosopher of observation with many, many points of view. It's not somebody who is a philosopher who is just a thinker or an abstract kind of person. What I begin to wonder and speculate about is that when she has so many planets in negative signs like that, that can take on a tone of negativity. And I begin to wonder whether she's one of those people that can see all the things that are wrong. And, that's her whole outlook on life. I don't think she got quite that negative. And the changeability, maybe the focus on what's wrong in the external world, maybe she just sees how evanescent the things are that are indicated by the water and earth signs. Things of the spirit and things of the mind approach eternity. But things of the earth and water are things that, are just here for a few millions of years, and the forms that are manifest in them are also quite evanescent. So it's sort of like one gets an attitude of negativity, and this is all on its way out. The opportunity cross profiles show very clear things and things that clarify what we've already seen. From number 5, we can see that she, in her little life and in her personality, is where that's her philosophical laboratory. Not so much society as her personal experience. She may know things that relate to society at large, but she does so because she has experienced them on her own. The quadrant profile, number 7, clarifies things a little more. It clarifies that even though she has interest in culture, she's not really interested in society for itself. She's not interested in opportunities to be universalistic. That's possible that that outlook or those kinds of opportunities are a result of having all the negative sign things, but that's a different kind of cross-profiling than we're doing right now. The focusing on herself and the little world, the microcosmic world from number 5, if you put that together with number 8, one wonders, like you study yourself and you see your habits happen over again and again and again, and you see yourself really as not being a changeable kind of person. And you wonder whether she didn't get a philosophy of opportunities where she saw some things as inevitables. When you live in your petty little life, that can happen. That gets clarified a little more when you look at number 10, and you see there are a lot of things in the houses of forms. That is, the professional houses are houses of forms, and the houses of fadedness. The 4th, the 8th, and the 12th are the more faded houses. So altogether, she has sort of something of a faded outlook. So she's somebody who can see problems from personal experience, but is almost in a view that nothing can be done about them, at least from the viewpoint of the opportunities, even somewhat from the viewpoint of the attitudes. And if that doesn't describe existentialism very accurately, that you can see all the problems, but you feel you can't do anything about them, and that it's even futile to try to do so. I went to that existentialist play, the Antigone, the Jean Anouilh version of Antigone, and it was interesting. It was dour. It was a great production. They put on the production really well. And they have commentators right in among the players, and the commentators have speeches. And at the end, one of the commentators, Creon comes on like the heavy, the way he does in the original version by Sophocles. He's the heavy, and he supports the law and order and society and all of that. You automatically hate him because of those phony social views and all of that. But all of the other people, like Antigone and Cleon's son, who was supposed to marry Antigone, and all the people who died by committing suicide or something like that, they just die. And the commentator says something to the effect of, well, it's a tragedy. Everybody who was supposed to die died. That whole existentialist, not that, almost as if the people who died for a principle were fools for living like a principle, because there's no meaning to principle. That's the way the existentialists see things. And this chart has a lot of that flavor to it. Looking at the activity cross profiles. Now, this is a very different set of activity profiles than all of the others that we look at. From the application profile, we can see that things are waning, that there's a cooling interest, and perhaps even existentialist ennui or something like that. And from the phase profile, there's an awareness of things coming apart or an awareness of decadence. This could be a contemplative kind of thing, so that things are revealed in the thaw or the breakdown of manifestation, but but it doesn't have that. It just means that she loses interest. Sort of as things are deconstructing, they become less and less interest as the deconstruction becomes progressive. The big profile is number 13. Huge number of malefics. Even the variables are basically malefic, so that if you have just 2 categories, it's 1 benefic and 12 malefics. Wow, that's really, really tough. Now, that could mean somebody who is very testy and somebody who is very trying. even somebody who is destructive. And philosophically, that certainly describes her. It's somebody who's in deconstructive activity, very destructive. Now, with the intensity profile, you wonder whether it's a matter of, the intensity profile is hot and cold. 5 intense, 7 mild ones, and only 1 intermediate one. And you get the feeling that she's hot and cold, and she dives into something, and if there's something juicy there, she's intent, and if not, she just lets it fade away really quickly. So if you put the whole set of things together, you see a kind of fading decadence, and you wonder if one associates with negativity and active deconstruction, whether that kind of fade away kind of thing, which is typical to existentialists, the world ends with a whimper and not with a bang, whether that isn't something, if that doesn't describe her altogether correctly. The focus profiles give us a different picture than all of the others. There's complete agreement, and complete agreement in the negative signs. So it's either like precipitating crystals or dissolving them, or depositing things or absorbing them. That's what a fire-water combination is like. The sun is in Capricorn. Water and earth are like that, working together, either absorbing from things that are solid or precipitating solids out of liquid. The alchemists used to describe they associated different kinds of inward spiritual consciousness with different chemical activities. Like they thought, flame tests, like borax bead tests, that when you flamed something, it showed its true nature. And they saw that as the challenge of will. And then when you challenge something with your will, it bursts out, and shows its own color. Whereas the process of thinking, they saw like the process of precipitation, taking something out of the vague spiritual worlds and crystallizing precipitates that were indeed crystals. And when you remembered things, or when you took things into yourself, that was sort of like putting things into solution. They didn't talk much about the aeration, but I'm sure it was in there in some of the alchemists. So, of all of the earthy signs, probably Capricorn is the most crystalline. And so what you get from this is like the inmost spirit is adamantine, but it's being dissolved into the more outward elements of character, into the body and in the soul. It's also possible to see it the other way. It's possible to take that and say that the absorption from the body and soul, being water, are like accretions, and that the spiritual consciousness crystallizes out of those minuscule little absorptions from the external world. Do you have a question? The stage profile shows that she's right after the first sextile and right before the first square. And it shows that the first sextile is sort of like you're getting the first knack of things or learning how to use the tools, and the first square is when things are materialized by resistance. So putting it all together, it has a kind of condensing feeling about it. Now this is interesting because as we go into looking at the whole picture, the general profile from the focus profiles, the big picture is someone who's trying to build, and somebody who's trying to build through a dissolution or precipitation process. But within that, it is all done with reductive techniques, things that break things down. And it's sort of like there's a not complete fulfillment in the character because there's a basic contradiction from the broadest character to the internal parts of it. In that the broadest part would like to develop something, would like to precipitate something, but internally it's used to breaking things down, it's used to analyzing and observing things, and everything seems to peter out. And so the small elements of the character do not combine to work with the big elements of the character. She may have visioned herself as having a bigger picture for seeing the world, and maybe that's why she doesn't have anything in that fourth quadrant, but she actually can't get there because of the internal little things that she does that go counter to what the broad character would like to do. All right, any questions on that one?
She was the model of the French intellectual woman for 20 years. And this is way before deconstruction comes in.
Yeah, but
Deconstruction came with Derrida in the late 60s. Her reputation was formed and solid and gone by the late 60s.
I don't think,
The word deconstructive.
because she breaks things down.
Well, I mean,
I'm not going to use it in a jargon sense, but clearly her view of women in society is not a positive one, and her analysis is not a constructive one that's going to make it better. Maybe in the long run that'll take place, but that'll have to come by a different kind of figure than this type of character.
when you and I first came to school here, she was the model of the French intellectual woman that ran the French department.
She wasn't a model to me.
She was up there in that Frank Lloyd Wright structure on, what's the name of that street? There by the lake.
Oh, yes, yes,
On Francis Street. I mean, she
yes,
was,
yeah.
the woman that was here was an exact duplicate of her.
All right, Hermann Hesse. Each one of the attitude profiles, 2, 3, 4, each one has an excess, but not all of them have complementary deficiencies. Put together, all of those excesses, they show somebody who's passive, changeable, and watery. And if you want to make an abstract picture, passive, changeable, and watery, of his attitude cross profiles all together in one lump, you could say that he's an abstract Pisces in his attitude, because that describes Pisces, even though he has only 2 planets there, but we're just talking about the abstract. So he's something of a dreamy, unstable, impressionable person in the way he runs his attitudes. Everything comes together and conspires to work with his accepting, fluent imagination. That's what he works by. To this end, he has sacrificed a lot of the positive sign attitudes, a lot of the assertive cardinal sign attitudes, and a lot of the organizational attitudes of the air. So if you want to make an abstract of his attitudes in deficiency, putting them all together, you would say that he is a Libra deficient, which describes somebody who doesn't have positivity, activity, organization, and assertiveness. I tried to do something different with this than I did with the other ones. So the opportunity cross profiles, it's very different than the attitude cross profiles. You get a total picture that is a picture that is totally different. It's more balanced than it is imbalances. And in the imbalances, there is a slight edge toward the deficiency opportunity imbalances. So he's a character with opportunities. He chooses controllable circumstances. You get that from number 8, which is quite a strong profile. That's probably the most standout, that in number 7. So he chooses controllable circumstances, and if you look at number 10, he chooses them with peers, people who he can relate to as equals. So putting this together, and he also chooses angular relationships. Putting this all together, his opportunities in abstract are like the 7th house, in that it's controllable, it's one of the acute, and it is one of the houses that indicate opportunities for peers. So basically he sees himself as a partner, as a correspondent, or as a collaborator with the public. In order to do this, he has sacrificed universality. There's nothing in that 4th quadrant. And he has sacrificed professional acclaim. He has very little in the professional houses. So if you look at him in deficiencies, in terms of the opportunities, he is a 10th house deficient. So what I get when I look at all of the opportunities put together, I get the feeling of somebody who wanted to control the circumstances so that he could be out of the eye of society and with his peers, that through whom or through his writings that he could affect society indirectly rather than directly. Boy, we're breezing along here. This is going to be a 1 hour class. No questions, no hard things coming up here at all. Looking at the activity cross profiles, he appears to be a fading builder. Looking at number 14 and 15, he has more of the aspects that are separating, almost 3 times as many aspects separating as applying. And 3 to 2, first phase over second phase. So he's a fading builder who almost gets the feeling of something and then he relaxes. Because if you look at the intensity, things are fairly well balanced there. But the quality has twice as many benefics as benefics. He had twice as many benefics as malefics. And so you get the whole idea of somebody who's building something and things just fade away, but he does a good job. It's sort of like putting gentle finishing touches on it as it's quitting, and not somebody who is roughing something out or something like that. So you wonder whether he fades this much because he has so many benign talents that he has to maintain, that he can't keep up with them all and he just sort of gets character tired, or whether those benign talents cause him to relax, and in that relaxation he lets things fade. And you wonder whether the desire to build caused him to bring forth all of those tools, or whether he's building because he's got all of those tools and he wants to try them out. You don't know. In any case, he takes things in a very relaxed way, And he can build at ease. This is not a high-tension kind of writer at all. This is somebody that has to sort of lay back and do it. So if you put it all together in abstract, you would say that he is a first phase benefic of moderate intensity that fades. Yeah, it's a shorthand, but it gets you the ideas. I don't want to get too much into a jargon of it. Looking at the focus profiles. Sun is negative, moon is negative, and earth is positive. Water, water, fire. The residual part of the personality, or the more residual part, which is the personality, the outer physical personality, is of a different nature than the younger part in soul and spirit. So it's sort of like his impetus to do things comes from something that he's already done before, and that he can afford to be cool in his inner nature and in his soul nature because he's got enough to keep him going from without. There is some dissonance in this disagreement, in that the polarities are different, but it may be benign, because with that much water there's sometimes a tendency to be phlegmatic, which I certainly know all about. I'm a very phlegmatic, watery kind of person. And so the tendency to be phlegmatic or self-absorbed or something like that is drawn out by the fiery sign external. And the fiery sign external also gives him a sense of adventure, so that his imagination can be put to use. None of these are elements in the agreement profile would be considered extreme or severe. They're all somewhat gentle. The phase profile, which is sort of a scene-setting profile, is showing a leisurely coming apart of things. In this case, because the imagination is there, you get the feeling that with things coming apart, he is able to contemplate what is uncovered. Sort of like if a lake is evaporating and you see the fish and the plants that used to be underwater, before they die, you get to see them while things are dissolving or evaporating away, and that's the kind of picture that I get. So yeah, if I were to put it in very few words, I would call him a gentle contemplative in decadence, or when society that is in decadence. So it's not harmonious, but it's not harsh either, the whole big picture. All right, now let's try to put them all together. The general focus category put together with the attitude category, when you do that, you see that this is somebody that's off balance in attitude and in general. And it may be for the sake of imagination. Because if things are too much in a balance, they are homeostatic. And homeostatic means stasis. And when you have a stasis, things don't change. And if there's no change, then there is no possibility of creativity. So like it's somebody that looks like almost consciously cultures imbalance, slight imbalance, so that he can be able to use it creatively and to use it imaginatively. Both the broad focus profiles and the attitude profiles, they reinforce each other and they show a misty kind of temperament with a mild fire-water creativity that's probably manifest in images, as water likes to do. When you bring in the activity profile, you find a complementary kind of gentleness, even more gentleness in action. And the gentleness is in a state of relaxation. If you look at his works, they have no real villains in them. And nothing in them has violence or really severe violence, but they do taper off. None of them ends really emphatically. None of them ends with a exclamation point. There is some internal contradiction of trying to create times when things are going into decadence, but that's also the state of things. He's talking about a society that is not a healthy society. He tries to build within it. The whole character shows little extremity, except in the desire for controllable circumstances. He's not necessarily an asserter, but he wants to be in circumstances that he can control, and he wants to control them for the sake of others. This is not a self-centered kind of individual. All right. Geez, no questions, no little controversy tonight. This is a too easy of a group here. No. I'm even a little sorry that I included the live ones that I did, because I don't like working with live people because you can influence them, and I don't want to do that. We're understanding character, and character is timeless.
Character is timeless. You don't expect Cat Stevens to get up and start writing
songs. No.
I mean, not for this generation.
We do have some gentle people in
Not
here.
in the hip-hop generation.
No.
Everything is rough edges, dissonance.
Yes. Yeah.
Number one movie.
So you want me to add some hip hop characters in here?
Boy, not on your life.
Puff Daddy Combs or something like that, or Snoop Doggy Dog. Listen, it's really funny, but Snoop Doggy Dog put out a CD that said, "Doing it doggy style." He really did that. You gotta appreciate the wit of somebody in the face of society of it all. He's still around yet, isn't he? He's one that hasn't been shot yet.
Doing those wild girl videos.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, they come knocking on the door. That's when they get the,
Oh.
those kinds of things.
There's a secret, Richard. Anybody who stays close to a TV camera never dies.
Yeah, they have produced some interesting people, haven't they? All right, La Liz. We're dealing with somebody live, and so we have to be gentle. Looking at the attitude cross profiles, no real severe imbalances here at all. Maybe the element profile, she's got a lot in water, but everything else is balanced out pretty much in the element profiles. Only moderate deficiencies in earth and air, not zeros. The picture that I get of this is something like a ocean liner or something like that. A big ship in the water, but it's not a sailboat because there's not enough air. And it doesn't have a lot of ballast. It doesn't have a lot of weight, so it rides high in the water. And so she sort of cruises through life, and it looks something like that, too. Seems to be a good idea to have mostly balance if the things that you are going to be excessive about are watery. Because if you're out of balance with a lot of water, those emotional extremes can take a lot out of you and everybody else around you. All right, looking at opportunity cross profiles. Mostly balanced there too. Not a 1-0 or not a 1 really high. I guess the angularity is a little bit much, but nothing really severe. She does like to control circumstances, just like Hess did. Those are the circumstances she likes to be in. And she doesn't like vicarious circumstances, as we tell from the having only one planet in cadence signs. And that's probably pretty good for acting. She doesn't want to act indirectly. She wants to be able to put herself into a circumstance, and she wants to put herself into a circumstance that she can control. I think that's very excellent. And she wants to do that and do that responsibly, because she does have quite a few planets in succedent houses. That's always the mark of somebody who is pretty responsible. And if you think about it, she's had her love affairs and she's had her ups and downs, but her contributions to society and to thinking of herself as somebody who is a figure that is before society, a star, I think she's acted pretty responsible all along. She even sold her diamond, her prize diamond, from Richard Burton in order to finance John Warner's campaign. That's a big sacrifice. All right. She's another one like Hess that has a lot in the relational houses, down in profile number 10, and she wants to relate to others as equals. Putting that with a mild imbalance to the west, she looks at others as equals and likes to respond. This indicates that the opportunities are such that they help her to put herself in other people's shoes. You can even put the water together with that, and she can feel what it is like to be in other people's shoes. If you look at the circumstantiality profile, she puts herself into circumstances that she can put herself in other people's shoes and speak out about it. Her statements about AIDS and things like that are pretty good examples of that. Despite all of the publicity about her, I don't think that there's a lot of excess in her character. And the excess that has been there, she's been able to correct. She didn't, even though under the influence of Richard Burton, she did drink, but she was able to get out of that. Looking at the activity cross profiles, even more balance there than in either of the above, in the attitude or the opportunities. Only one stands out, and that is the application profile, where there's almost 2-to-1 separating over applying aspects. And that describes her life. She's gradually diminishing. She's gradually easing out of life. And she's an R&R person, a rest and relaxation person, and I think that forms a large part of her life. I get the feeling of her that she has to sleep enormous amounts. I don't know if that's true, but that's just the feeling I get about her. Watery signs are like that, and she's probably like that. The activity, number 11, is moderately high. And it indicates that she's not a one-trick pony. She's got a lot of things to be able to draw on, and maybe that's because she's letting up. Again, that whole inertial principle, when you get set, an object in motion tends to stay in motion in the direction of its motion until it's played out or until something knocks it out, but she's letting up, and when you're letting up, you don't have that same inertial effect. And with that, she can, that kind of relaxation, she can have more tools because she isn't so intense about it all. I guess that's enough about that. Looking at the focus cross profiling, it's a mixed bag. The agreement is similar to Hermann Hesse in that there's two watery signs inside, but outside in her case is a air sign instead of a fire sign. But his was a mild fire sign. And you can see two different kinds of atmospheres. He has more of a fiery, inspirational kind of fiery exterior, and it contains a kind of foggy interior, a cool, foggy interior. Liz has more of a cool exterior that has more poise and gracefulness and equipoise, all of those kinds of things. And it's containing steam that is a little bit hotter, because in this case Pisces is together with Scorpio, which is more of a hot steam and not so much of a cool fog like Cancer together with Pisces. So the combination is fluidic air and water, and you get a sense of refinement. It's sort of like double distilled water or double distilled alcohol or something like that. This is not the alcohol that you put into the barrel to get the flavor of the wood in the barrel. This is something that's refined to be more delicate. It's almost like a perfume. The combination is, she did have a perfume at one time, didn't she? She selected it herself. Yeah? She still does. Okay. I'm not in touch with the world of cosmetics. I guess I should be. If you cross this together with the phase test to look at the general phase of the moon is again just past the contemplative trine, and it's a weary time. Things, the fun of having uncovered all of the jewels that were hidden in the building, and things are headed toward breakdown or toward destruction, but they're not quite there yet, and that's sort of the attitude that she's in. If you put that all together, you get somebody who tries to be refined and somebody in that refinement who lives off of the largesse of cultural decadence. In our society, she represented, in a way, the queen of entertainment. Everybody goes to the movies and everybody wants to identify with something like that. And so she's got all of the grace in such that she needs, and there's a lot of emoting. All right, now let's try to put all of the categories together. If we take what we ended with, the focus, and put it together with the attitude, you get, I get an image of a large, fairly well-defined cloud that has some internal turbulence and some air-blown motion that's tending toward dissipation, but it's really not completely dissipant yet. It's defined, I guess, with grace and beauty. So she's a cloud-like figure. If you bring in the activity profiles, you get a sense of all kinds of actions, all kinds of tools, none of them being extreme, and all activated by emotion, but emotion that ebbs rather than mounts. It's sort of like an after feeling or an afterglow you get from your actions or having applied your talents in an emotional way, then you get the after feeling. Putting in the activity further, you get the, bringing in the opportunity. You get the sense of activity placed where things can be gotten done, and placed where things can be gotten done in egalitarian forms. And those forms are sensed emotionally or with compassion. This is a chart of a lot of compassion. She wants to get in and do things even if she doesn't initiate, and she wants to be responsible for her deeds. Finally, bringing the focus category back again, it's that she's kind and she's gentle, even if she's not perfectly clear. Cloudy people rarely are perfectly clear, and even though she has internal turbulence. So I get the feeling of it is that her emotions sustain balance or are sustained by balance either way, that has mild internal upsets, and it's a life that is like a fading little storms, little clouds fading away, and most of her faults, I guess you would say, are peccadillos, nothing monstrous or big or anything like that. I know in Spanish it would be peccadillo, but any comments? Geez, a class that is not into... These are the handouts. They're of a moderately good quality. I'm not ashamed of them. They're not my greatest work, but I'm not ashamed of them. What? Next time we begin the whole next phase of this, which is going to be very hard for me. I think I'm going to skip Thanksgiving celebration. I was going to go up north into the North Woods, and I think I'm just going to work on the computer because I have many forms to make out. The next phase is estimation of the relative strengths of each aspect with each other aspect so that you know which aspect is stronger than which, and which planet is stronger than which other planet. We're going to be not highly precise, but we'll be very definite. And what we're going to do is we're going to present. I haven't even tried it on a number of these charts. Only the first 4 that I've worked it on, or the first 6 I've worked it on. So the last 10, we'll be testing out the method to see whether it works. And the whole idea is when we have a table of the relative strengths of the aspects and the relative strengths of the planets, then we see whether the person is famous for the attitudes and tools that are the strongest by the estimation system, and that way you can tell whether the system is true or not. So we're going to be very bold and try to just do it publicly. And if I fall, I fall. I don't think I will because I've done it with enough charts now, so it almost always works out. And so we'll be talking sometime, a little bit into the introduction next time, about the philosophy of science, of how you measure something and when you know that your measurement is true to reality, and how to avoid mismeasurement even if you're just estimating. Yes. First week after Thanksgiving. That's all. No, you can hang around if you like. Shakespeare? Yeah, I can make one right now. Yeah, thank you.